Yeah, it seems like obviously there's some people who just seem to naturally get it, and so the people that you've worked with, so, like you said, Raven, Dusty Rhodes, especially just all
Yeah,
absolute legendary cutting promos, and
right.
it it just makes a huge difference. And it was good of you to note too that people can learn, because I talked with Tyson Kidd, who wrestled for the
Yeah,
WWE, and he said that obviously he was trained in the Hard Dungeon, and he was such a phenomenal technical wrestler. But he said the hardest thing for him to pick up on was promos, and you notice that how he would get better with them over time. And
right.
even Roman Reigns, like the company's biggest star right now, we've seen just commitment and dedication, and everyone's talking about how much they don't dislike him. Give him some time off, and he comes back, and now everyone's praises him. It just shows that you can make improvements, and you can adjust things, and you can get better, and you can.
Or in what I think in Roman Reigns' case, you find a character that is not far from who you are in real life, and it's easier for you to portray. If you take a guy who is not overly charismatic and is not necessarily the most upbeat, happy all the time guy, try to make
Right.
you number one baby face, that may fall flat on its face. But you take a guy who's confident about being, his own ability and kind of cocky about where he is, and you give him that kind of character. I think right now Roman Reigns is doing the best work he's ever done, bar none, by
Oh,
far.
oh, definitely. And I always liked him because you could just see just the potential that he had. And
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's especially tough for him because he was paired with Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, who now John Moxley wrestles
right.
at AEW now. But they're such great promo workers, and he's always having to kind of feud with, like, be with them and share the screen with them and not get overshadowed. But he's a brooding, kind of like a badass, rough guy, and you just got to you finally have to embrace that. And he's, as you can see, as you just noted too, he's doing the best work he's ever done. And it's
And you
very
give him
good to
Paul
see.
and you give him Paul Heyman.
Oh, yeah.
There's that.
Yeah,
let's
that
not
might help a
discount how
tad.
let's not discount how great Paul is, because he's great at this business.
He could he could get anybody over legitimately.
Yep.
He's just phenomenal. uh, um Speaking, kind of a Paul Heyman, it's kind of a weird connection to make, but when you debuted at WCW, your first match was with Chris Benoit, who had also wrestled with the ECW and stuff, and did a lot of other independent work.
Right.
How kind of nice was that? Your first match, and you go, "Oh, okay, well, I'm already going to be in the ring with a great performer." Is it kind of an extra layer of pressure? Because I know he was also could be very intense. So it's.
Chris was very intense with his work.
Mhm.
He was an intense individual, and I consider him a good friend. We had done some work with him already, obviously, because Raven was in an angle with him, and so it was, even though it was our first match,
Right.
my first match on Nitro, and so. But again, you go back to there are two sides of that. I'm in there with Chris, who I will tell you to this day, out of all the guys I've been in the ring with, and I've been in the ring with all of them, he was by far the best. There was a little pressure there because you don't want to mess that up. You don't want to do something wrong, and you're thinking, there's nothing I can do he can't cover up, but still you want to perform well. And he did, obviously. And to this day, the way some of my things in my career fell, like who gets to have their first televised match against Chris Benoit on a live show? It was a great thing for me, and Chris was awesome. Our match got cut short halfway through. We ran into the 9 o'clock hour. It totally cut out my heat. But the best part about it was I had not wrestled. I've been on TV for 2.5 months, and everybody wanted to see me get killed. And that was exactly what happened. We were right up. We were almost to the cutoff spot, and the ref leans in. It's like, we got to go home. And Benoit said, "Lodi, sorry, we got to go home right now." And so, have you heard the story of this match, how it got laid out?
No, I didn't.
I will make this quick. I've told it multiple times, but if someone didn't know Chris or didn't know anything about him, I think this story, if this doesn't prove, at least it gets you thinking in the right direction, how great he was. I don't know what it would take to change your mind. Go back to my story earlier. We got to be at the building at 2:00. Show starts at 8. I knew a week in advance that I had to wrestle Chris at the pay-per-view because he was going through the flock one by one to get to Raven. And so TV the week before, Terry Taylor had told me, he said, Lodi, you've got Benoit Monday at Nitro. So I had a couple of days to think about it, but I've never had a match on Nitro yet. I'm obviously Benoit's going to put the match together, right? That's not going to be up to me. The green kid doesn't call a match. My tag team partner, Toad, was my roommate at the time. He said, hey, I know you're not going to get to call a match. He said, but if he asks for any input, he goes, you got to climb over the rail, whatever. How great would it be if when you get up on the apron, he just freaking gloms you from behind and knocks you off. You take a big, nasty bump on the rail, and he just comes around the ring, just chops you like 5, 6, 7 times. Gets in the ring, you cut him off, whatever, get your heat. But he said, one thing, Benoit, at the time, he was using 3 finishes. He would do the headbutt, he would do the crossface, and he would also do the superplex for a finish at times. And my roommate said, he said, one thing I haven't seen him do, he said, and I don't know that you can really ask for this, but what if he did all 3? Like, what if he hit you with a superplex and then hit the diving headbutt and the crossface? I'm like, whatever. So anyway, in our minds, we had laid this whole match out. And I get the TV at 2:00, and I'm pretty excited. We go to catering, and I see Chris immediately. I'm like, hey, Chris, just want to say, we're working on the board's up already. He knows he's wrestling me. I know I'm wrestling him. I'm like, whenever you're ready to get together, just you tell me and I'll be there. He goes, I'll grab you later. Cool. 4:00 rolls around. Catering was up all day. So you go eat 2 or 3 times. 4:00, we're back in catering. I'll probably see Benoit get around 4:35. Hey, Chris, you want to get together, go over a match? Every time he looks at his watch, he's like, we'll do it later. I'm like, okay, cool. So it's 6:30. Starting to wonder a little bit. I'm like, okay, it's getting close to TV time here, and I really can't find Chris. And so back then, a lot of times the flock would do one of 2 things. We would the show would start with us sitting in the front row. In other words, we already come out before the show started, or we'd walk down during the second or third match. And the way it was set up on the card, Benoit and I were supposed to be on right about the end of the first hour. Before Raw came on, we were supposed to go dark for our 9:00 slot. And it's like 7:15 now. And most of the guys get together at some point during the day and have an idea of what they're doing. I'm already dressed because I went to Raven. I'm like, hey, are we going to walk out during the 3rd, 4th match? So I think Benoit might have been 5th. Or are we going out early? He goes, you know what? Let's go out early tonight, which means we walk out at 7:45. And at 7:15, I can't find Benoit. And I've got 30 minutes before I go out to the arena to sit there for an hour to wait on my match. And I'm getting nervous now. I've made my signs, everything. It's like 7:40. And I'm about to lose. I can't, backstage, you've seen the arena, you've been in the arenas or you've seen the videos. There's a lot of space back there. It's easy to lose somebody. I can't find Benoit. Raven's like, are you ready? I'm like, I got to find Chris before we go out. And I remember going back towards the locker room, and Chris always wore this long black trench coat in the winter. Raven wasn't there. It was Saturday. Raven was actually in the hospital at the time. Sorry. So we had, hold on a second. It'll come to me. What did he have? He almost died. I forgot it now. What was it that was wrong with him? It wasn't colitis.
Pneumonia?
Help me. I don't know. It was something with, it wasn't appendicitis. Pancreatitis. That's what he had.
Oh, pancreatitis.
Yeah. Pancreas, okay. Yes. He was in the hospital for 11 days. So Saturn was in charge. Saturn's like, let's go. And I'm like, I got to find Benoit. Anyway, Benoit comes to a curtain. He's got his coffee. He's got his toothpick. He's wearing a long trench coat. I'm like, Chris, can we please go over this match? Okay, we're good on recording?
Yep.
All right. Sorry, my phone's blowing up over here. I got a client coming in just a minute.
No problem.
So I finally find Benoit. I'm like, Chris, we got to go over this match. And Chris, he's like, looks at his watch again. He's like, Lodi, it's not even 8 o'clock yet. I'm like, we're getting ready to go out right now to the ring. We got to go over this, or I've got to go. He looks at me and goes, what do you want to do? And he's standing there. I said, I can't believe Chris Benoit just asked me what I want to do. And I said, how about if I come over the rail, get up on the apron, bam, bam, bam. I laid it out for him. He looks at me and goes, see you out there, turns around and walks off. One time, I gave it to him. You go back and watch that match. He nailed everything. We laid that out, and he just went out there and he did it like he did. And again, after being around Raven long enough, my tag team partner and I knew what a Chris Benoit match should look like. But all three of the finishes, he hit it all. It was great. It was perfect for my character. It was awesome. So, but the fact that he let me call that match, and then he went out there and did it after hearing it one time, that to me was pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, I've heard nothing about him except him being an absolute just professional in terms of talent and how he carried himself on the show. And
you know, you mentioned earlier the word intensity, and he was intense to watch. He was an intense individual, but he was very safe, and his work was way lighter than it looked. The chops were not light.
yeah,
his kicks, his punches, all of that stuff.
I know that was one of Kurt Angle hated being chopped, and so working that angle with the two of them, and then they both were such heavy choppers at that point too. That was just, it was so funny. But that was really quite a interesting and memorable first match. That's really quite the story. And you mentioned you're working on the signs and stuff too. Did anybody ever help you with those? Or, like, was there even like creative that helped, or you just gave some of the boys and like stuff and to help you?
You know, it was funny. The first probably 3 or 4 weeks, maybe, Raven would give me a little input. And I think Raven realized early on and quick enough that I had a good enough mind for the Lodi character that I was on the same page with him as what he wanted on there. And so he let me just do what I wanted. No one from the company checked my signs, which is amazing. Which is amazing at this point. I could put something on national TV that nobody ever okayed. And the interesting thing, Raven would occasionally drop a hint here or there, and like, hey, put this on a sign. And most of his ideas were decent. I would say probably 60% of them made it to a sign, because the other 40% I would never put on. I mean, some of them were really bad humor. They're just that's not going to be on TV, Raven. Sorry, that's just inappropriate. It's funny because guys would stop and give me an idea here and there, and I used a lot of the guys' ideas backstage. Probably the one person that gave me more sign ideas, just on a side note, out of the blue. It was funny. I'd be writing my signs, and he would walk up and just whisper in my ear and keep going. Dean Malenko.
Oh, really? Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't understand after his Iceman character how funny Dean was, and still is. His personality and his humor and his wit is amazing. And he came up with a lot of good, ideas along the way with the signs. It was always so funny because, here I am writing, my back turned or whatever. And he'd come up behind me and like whisper in my ear and just keep going. And I would turn and just catch the back of him. It wasn't like we'd have a conversation, He would just stop and whisper something in my ear. And whatever Dean told me, it almost always made it to a sign.
Yeah, you mentioned that people don't understand how funny it is. He doesn't get his due, because I've read a lot of autobiographies and interviews and things, and Chris Jericho, the Hardy Boys, they say just how funny he was, and especially when he came to WWE, or he was with the Filthy Animals, and then when they came over too, and then he did the Ladies Man gimmick, and he's just great and so superb, and just a phenomenal mind for the industry. That he's just great, fantastic. So you had and throughout your career, you kind of also had some injuries. I believe your first run in WCW was hampered by an ankle
Right.
injury.
Yeah.
How do you kind of deal with that, especially when you kind of feel like you have some momentum and then just something like that? Just how do you keep
It
a
was,
good positive mindset and things?
it was frustrating. The one thing I'm most happy about is it happened on a live Nitro when we finished the match,
Yeah.
and with psychosis, and my body heals pretty fast. I jokingly tell people that God knew what I was going to do for a living, and He gave me this starfish-like healing ability. I heal really fast compared to most people. And the flip side of that is I realize taking care of myself and being an athlete, when it comes to rehab and therapy and that kind of stuff, I'm going to do everything I can to get back as fast as possible. It was frustrating. I think when it happened, the Lodi character was really having a good run there. And so I was out almost 13 weeks. It was supposed to be 10, and they made a mistake and had to go back in and redo my ankle. And when I say they made a mistake, the WCW doctor performed the surgery perfectly. I've got this thing about hospitals, and I don't stay very long. And my friends and family know that I check myself out as quick as possible. And I had surgery and checked myself out the next morning. And before I left, because I was flying back to North Carolina for my rehab, the surgeon had his therapist come in and talk to me about what I was supposed to start doing at week 7, 8, and 9, because my surgeon said, you'll be back in the ring in 10 weeks. You have a broken bone in your ankle, the tendons, the ligaments, everything's good. That bone will heal faster than a sprained ankle, actually. He said, 10 weeks from today, you'll wrestle. His therapist came in and talked to me. I went back home. WCW decided, now I'm on crutches and I'm wearing a boot up to my knee. They wanted me to fly to Miami to do a commercial. Now, I've got to get myself to the airport, get through the airport, get to the Miami arena. They wanted me to be in front of a live crowd at Nitro, holding up signs, advertising the new Raven shirt, and then I could fly home. Wasn't happy about it, but I flew to Miami. Funny story. I couldn't walk. I was on crutches. So I had a flight back out that night before Nitro was over, because they wanted to film it at like 7:45 before the cameras came up. So they took me out. I'm standing there with the flock and a full crowd behind me. The show's getting ready to start. We shoot the commercial. We've got 4 or 5 minutes before 8 o'clock comes up, and I'm there with crutches. I'm like, I can't get to the back before the show comes up because the entrance is so far away. Ron Reese carries me to the back. Kevin runs with my crutches, and they run me to the back. And as I get back there, I'm talking to our trainer, and he's like, hey, can I see your leg? What's going on? I'm like, Coach, I'm still in a lot of pain. He goes, it's been 3 weeks. You shouldn't be in pain. What's going on? We start talking. He's like, it looks really swollen. I want you to spend the night and fly to Atlanta tomorrow to see the doctor. And they did some x-rays the next morning. And what had happened, I broke the medial malleolus, which is a triangle bone, split it apart. And they put 2 pins in it and put it back together. And they did the x-ray the next day, and the doctor comes in and goes, what have you been doing to your ankle? And I said, what do you mean? He was visibly upset. I said, nothing but what the therapist told me. He said, no, what have you been doing? Why have you been walking? I said, Doc, I haven't been walking. I'm on my crutches. He basically like, don't lie to me. I got to find out what's going on. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, when you broke your ankle the first time, it was split to here. We pinned it back together. He said, the pins are still in it. You split it to here. He said, what have you been doing? And I said, I've been doing those exercises with a TheraBand that your therapist gave me. He goes, what exercises? I said, remember when your therapist came in before I flew out? He goes, yeah. He goes, when did he tell you to do those? He said, I'll be back. He went and spoke with a therapist. The day I checked out of the hospital, my therapist thought I was coming back from my 8-week checkup. I had surgery that morning and started doing these exercises you do 8 weeks after surgery. I actually pulled the bone further apart doing the exercises. The doctor was like, you're a beast. How do you pull that apart? I'm like, I was just doing what he told me. He said, we got to go back in and operate again. And he said, that's not going to work. So the good news is, he said, why is your knee so swollen? They did an MRI on my knee. I'd actually torn my meniscus as well. So they did my knee surgery, redid my ankle. Came back 10 weeks later. He was right. 10 weeks from the time of getting the therapy and everything right. The second time around, I was back in the ring. And I came back, and I don't think that, obviously, any time off TV is bad, but I don't think it was absolutely career crushing. But yeah, so that was frustrating. When I came back, the ankle was, as good as new, and I picked right back up where I left off, I think.
Yeah, it's the rehabbing and everything. I know it takes its toll, because you just kind of get cabin fever a lot, and you just
Right.
you want to get out. But how do you? I know you've had some other neck injuries and stuff as well, but how do
Yeah.
you keep just a positive mindset? Because it's difficult, and neck injuries aren't anything to play with. Man, it's how do you just keep a good mental state of mind and just keep powering through?
Yeah, I've said it a couple times already. And I know
So
it sounds repetitive,
no,
but
right.
we go back to, I had my first anterior cervical discectomy in '94, and my doctor at the time told me I would never lift weights again. That would be done. And I did the Mr. North Carolina the following year in 1995. So I've kind of been one to disprove doctors a lot. And in 2002, when I had my next neck surgery, I had another discectomy and a bone plug put in, and I was fused. And I was in a brace for 6 months, and that was really frustrating. That was hard. And I thought at that time my wrestling career may be finished. And I came back in late 2003. And my third discectomy I had in 2017. And I actually only took 9 months out of the ring after the surgery before I came back. And it's one of those mindsets like we talked about earlier. I'm not going to move to Atlanta to go down and be an enhancement guy on Saturday night. I'm not going to have an injury I want to walk away from wrestling on my own terms. And I know nobody beats Father Time unless your name's Mike Jackson. So I really want to walk away with a healthy body. I mean, I realize after all the injuries, I mean, I've got issues now. People are like, you don't complain. All of my wrestling injuries, nobody told me to be a professional wrestler. That was all my choice. So for me to sit around and complain to you that, oh, my neck hurts every day, and oh, my legs are tight, and I have this shooting pain, and I've got, this nerve damage on my left side, and I can't do this, I can't do that. Who wants to hear that? I chose to do it. It's not like I'm a victim. It's like I chose this life. And I'm the one who chose to go back to it every time after the surgery. So for me to sit around and complain about hurting, I think that's kind of a Debbie Downer nobody wants to hear. And so it's funny where when new kids start at my training school to wrestle and they have, bruises or get banged up a little bit. And I had a couple of kids a couple of years ago who every day they came in, they're like, oh, coach, my neck's kind of sore. Coach, my lower back's kind of sore. It's like every day. These guys were Division I athletes. They played, one played basketball in college, and one had thrown the shot put and the hammer. And I took it a couple of times, just kind of blew it off. Like, I don't know, maybe the third, fourth day in a row, I get one of those things. The kids know they make me mad when I throw my hat. I take my hat off, and I'm like, hold on a second. Reed Flair was with us. I'm like, Reed's been wrestling for a couple of years. Have you guys heard Reed complain about anything hurting? And they're like, well, no. And Cash Wheeler, who's a good friend of mine, he was with us. I'm like, have you heard him? This is, he's still in indie shows and younger. Like, have you heard him complain about anything? He's been wrestling 7 or 8 years. Like, I've had 2 broken necks. You guys heard me, complain about my knees or my ankles? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, we all hurt. We just don't talk about it. You guys are brand new. Stop. I don't want to hear it. And so I'm not trying to be insensitive,
Right.
But I tell the kids it's part of what we do. It's not natural to throw yourself on a concrete floor or in a ring or whatever the case may be and have guys that weigh 250, 300 pounds throwing you around or you throwing them around. And, sometimes one person zigs and one person zags. Sometimes you just go in opposite directions and things break. Bodies aren't perfect. They're not made to last forever. So it's not a matter of, are you going to get hurt? It's a matter of when is it going to happen? How bad is it going to be? And how can I get through it?
Right. That just seems to be the most common denominator throughout the entire wrestling industry.
Yeah.
I know that you've spoken in your past you've had some, it was an addiction to painkillers, I believe.
Yeah.
And which, I mean, when you talk about everything that all the surgeries and all the health issues and stuff, it's a lot easier to happen than people think. And I've had family members and friends and stuff, and it just comes up on you so fast, and it can be really overwhelming. And people just don't understand how much pain individuals can be in. How is that something that you were kind of able to overcome and kind of tackle?
It was one of the hardest things I've had to do in my life, and my drug addiction and my pill use got just absolutely obscenely out of control. You've heard all the numbers of the guys, and before I got into the wrestling business, I had heard some of these guys taking this many pills, or that many pills, or this much of this much of that, and it almost is one of those things like, oh, this guy's got to be embellished, and that can't be true. And then you get caught up in it, and you realize you're taking 40 pain pills a day. Like, how did I get to that point? And breaking that addiction was hard. I was actually having a conversation this morning with a client and just talking about the hell that it was to go through that in the 2-week period where when I got clean from the pain pills and kind of stopped cold turkey. I remember Lenny was hurt and we were working together at the time, and I was home and trying to get sober. And there was a 2-week period where I was hot, I was cold, I was sick, I was throwing up, I was hot, I was cold. It was just this gamut of emotions, and it's not something I would wish on anybody. And because of my past history and because of my addictive nature, it has forced me to, with my injuries I've had since then, I refuse to take any pain pills. I don't take any medications. After my neck surgery in 2017, actually the morning of my surgery, got into an argument with a nurse, and she was giving my prescriptions for when I left. And I had a friend with me, and she was like, "You got to, take your oxycodone. You got to take this, whatever." And I said, "Ma'am, I can't take that. I've got an addiction issue, and I just got to get through it." And people were like, "You had a neck surgery, you had this surgery, and you didn't take any pills." I'm like, "No, I won't take any narcotics whatsoever." And people were like, "Well, it's okay if you take them for pain." I'm like, "But I can't separate the two," And I know too many people that it's been one pill, and the next thing you know, they go back down a path, and I don't want to go back to that ever again. And so people are like, "Oh, I feel so sorry for you because you can't take anything for your pain." I'm like, again, self-inflicted. Mm-hmm. I have myself to blame, not anyone else. So I bear that, but and I don't say it or as a badge of honor. I just, like, one of the times I got hurt, I was working with my old tag team partner. This was 2012, 2013, and I did a spot in the corner with a chair set up, and the guy was going to send me in, and the chair had slid down, and I went between the ropes and hit my head on the ring post and fell out of the ring. And so I'm laying there on my back, and it's Scotty Matthews rolls out of the ring. I can sense him coming towards me. I try to sit up, and I've got this gash on the back of my head, and blood is just pouring out. I mean, it's bouncing off the concrete. I'm bleeding so bad. And from the neck down, I'm really having a hard time with my legs. And I'm like, I did not just break my neck again. I did not just break my neck again. And Scotty comes towards me, and I remember telling him, I'm like, I think we got to go home. And, we got finished. And he's like, you think? And for this company we were working for, I was their heavyweight champ. And here I am, 5 minutes to a match, just blood's gushing. And I really mentally, I had a concussion, obviously, and couldn't even tell you where I was. And Scotty rolls me into the ring, and I stand up, and I'm doing the Terry Funk sale, but not on purpose. It's because I can't even stand up straight. And Scotty slides in the ring across from me, and he's got a chair. And I'm looking at him. I just remember my eyes. I could feel them like they're big as saucers. And I'm standing here thinking, like, what are you doing? And he's like, Doc. and he comes at me, and I just halfway duck down, and he swings, hits the top rope, hits himself, and grabs me as he falls and pulls me on top of him. And the ref's like 1, 2, 3. And Scotty gently rolls me off and calls for the doctor. And yeah, you know, mentally not there. And I've got all these EMTs working on me, and I'm blood pouring. I end up getting 7 staples in my head. But the one thing I remember is they're putting me into the ambulance. I heard some of the EMTs talking. I was kind of in and out of it. And it was the one and only time I got carried out of a ring and left the building in an ambulance. And that was a little scary. That's never happened before. I've always been wanting to get myself to the back, and there wasn't a choice that day. But I remember the EMTs, as they're putting me in, I could hear them, even though I wasn't necessarily told. I kept hearing them say, "No narcotics, no narcotics." And I didn't know what had happened. And we got to the hospital later on, and as they released me, because I wouldn't spend the night as usual, we're walking to my car. Scotty was walking me out to drive me back to where we were staying. We were in Jessup, Georgia. And he said, "Hey, man, I hope you're not mad, but I know your take with the pills and stuff. And I told him you didn't want any narcotics. I hope that's okay." And I just gave him a big hug. I said, "Bro, I love you." I said, "Thank you for looking out for me," because I couldn't have told him that. You know, I would have never thought of it at that point because I was basically incapacitated. But I could hear them, and he had told him immediately, no matter what, don't give me narcotics. And so that's the kind of friends I have. I'm blessed with some great people around me.
Oh yeah, it's just really good to have the best people around you. That's quite the Terry Funk cell. That's I haven't heard that anyone bring that one up in a minute. So
You know, I wish we had that on video, because I remember doing it, and I remember, you know, obviously a lot of us, we get hit with a chair or whatever, we'll try to do the Terry Funk cell, and none of us can do it like Terry, because Terry was the best. You know, the whole. And I remember, that's the only thing I think of. I was doing. I'm like, I look like Terry Funk right now, and here comes Scotty with a chair. "Hey man, I don't know how much more you need to go. I have got a client waiting on me. It's almost 5. If you want, do you want to wrap this up at another time and add on to it? Would that work for you?"
Yeah, that
I
would
know
work.
we're kind of in a weird spot to just stop.
No, that would be fine. We can go back again if you'd like and re-meet. I can accommodate your schedule if you want, or if you
Okay.
want to wrap up now, whichever
Yeah.
you wanted to do.
Why don't we, because it's 4:51, I really need to run.
Okay.
Again, I apologize. I should have told you quicker. I talk a lot. I know that. And sometimes I get to rambling, and I need somebody to put the brakes on me. When we get off, will you look over your schedule and shoot me some times, what might work for you? I had 3 shows last weekend. So like I said, I was crazy busy. This weekend, I've got a show, and I'm wrestling a couple hours away on Saturday night. And then Sunday, I'm actually preaching in Georgia Sunday night, and I got to be back for work Monday morning at 5 a.m. So this weekend's kind of crazy, but I'm sure we can wrap it up. Unless you need it done before early next
No,
week.
that would be fine. What I'm using most of it. I'm going to be writing individual stories and stuff later, but I'm using how the wrestling industry has improved its health and safety and stuff, and other people's experience with that. So I've gotten enough here where I can do that. But it's also not due till later, so I can get your thoughts more on it and such next week as well.
That would be great.
You're great. I'll shoot you some times and everything. I really appreciate you taking the time today. It was very
You're
kind.
welcome. I appreciate it, man. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right, great. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Good luck with your appointment.
Thank you.
Have a good day.